Hello everyone, this is the finale of What If Naruto Was a Genius and Found Out the Secret, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. In the nearby forest, the Nukenon stopped and took a seat on a stump. Alright, obviously you two have thought about this. Tell me what you've come up with. Naruto leaned up against a tree while Sasuke sat on a branch of that tree. Well, we've come up with several solutions, most of which aren't appealing. The Nukenon nodded, indicating them to go on. Sasuke continued. We aren't welcome in any village, so we'd be stuck with working for people like Gato, becoming tools of others. We refuse to take orders from anyone. We could use a several-layered henge to blend into society, but we have objectives we need to complete, which consists of taking out 9 people. We could help a group overthrow a tyranny, but those are rare. Or we could just steal what we need. The only plausible one is bounty hunting. The Nukenon sighed. You've covered everything we do to survive. All of us had morals when we started out, however, those who kept them didn't last long. Being a Nukenon makes the most bloodthirsty dog of a village look like a saint to us. You still have your morals, however, you will have to sacrifice them to live. Naruto and Sasuke glared at him. No. The Nukenon raised an eyebrow. I seem to have hit a nerve. Naruto nodded slowly. We might be willing to drop most of them, however, there is one we will not drop. To gain power at the other's expense. The Nukenon nodded slowly. There was a deep hidden meaning behind that. One that held many bitter memories, if their expressions were anything to go by. You obviously have a good reason for that. I'm not going to pry into your past, but know this. There are times when you have to kill your heart to do things that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. The Nukenon stood up and looked at both of them. Well, it's been nice meeting you. I'll catch you round. Naruto stopped him. We'd also prefer it if you left the wave alone. The Nukenon raised an eyebrow. Oh, why's that? It's the only place that ever acknowledged us as regular humans. The Nukenon sighed. You guys'll have to learn that you can't afford to have connections to any place longer than your stay there. Those that keep those connections are found out and exploited by others. Later, the Nukenon disappeared, leaving only a few displaced leaves to indicate he'd ever been standing there. Naruto and Sasuke pondered his words. Everything the Nukenon had said was true, however little they wanted to admit it. They wouldn't put it past Konoha to secretly hold one of Tazuna's family hostage, ordering them to give themselves up or they would kill him. It was better if they severed all connections with anyone but the 3 of them. Naruto took out a scroll and a calligraphy brush and ink jar. Ever since he had begun working with Orochimaru on Fuinjutsu, Naruto had always carried one around in case he needed to make a sealing scroll on the run. He wrote out a short letter to Tazuna, thanking him for his hospitality, and telling him that they were not going to be coming back. Naruto rolled the scroll up and summoned a small one-tailed kitsune. The kitsune looked up at him, waiting for its orders. Naruto handed him the scroll. Give this to Tazuna. With Kyuubi's help, he used a rather advanced form of telepathy usable only by higher demons to send the kitsune the directions. The kitsune yipped and ran out of the clearing with the scroll in its mouth. Sasuke was also writing his own scroll, and that's when Naruto sensed a squad of Anbu-level signatures nearby. Sasuke finished his scroll and rolled it up, throwing it to the ground in the clearing. Sasuke turned to Naruto and gave a slight flick of his head to indicate they should leave. Naruto nodded and they both disappeared well away from the Anbu. The Anbu cursed as they saw the 2 targets get away. They came into the clearing and looked at the scroll that Sasuke had thrown and noticed that it was addressed to them. None of them could sense any chakra coming from the scroll to indicate some form of genjutsu or fuinjutsu, so they took the scroll and opened it and their eyes bulged as they read the contents. For Konoha Anbu, you were pathetic. Let us give you some advice. We're giving you 3 chances. Each time Konoha initiates a capture attempt, cause us harm or blackmail us, you will have 1 strike against you. This time will not count. After the 3rd slip up, we will destroy Konoha and every single one of its inhabitants. Considering you gave neither of us a single chance for a normal life before we left, This is a rather generous warning, don't you think? The Anbu nodded and left for Konoha with all due haste. Making a direct threat to Konoha was not to be tolerated, especially from a pair of teenagers. Unknown to them, Naruto could choose to unleash Kyuubi at will. 6.5 months later, Naruto and Sasuke had quickly gotten used to bounty hunting to keep their funds up. By now, Sasuke knew how to do the forced sleep technique without hand seals. Using it every night to drown out the sounds of his brother and his lover which echoed throughout the area gave him an excellent amount of practice. However, about 6.5 months after they left the wave, they ran into a squad of Konoha Anbu who were apparently going for the same target they were. However, since Naruto and Sasuke had arrived several minutes before the ANBU, the kill was theirs by right. However, there was a new member to the Anbu on this squad and he charged both Sasuke and Naruto without thinking. Naruto's eyes lit up at the man's ignorance and puffed up a tail with chakra and drove it through his neck with frightening speed, killing him instantly. Their mood thoroughly spoilt, Sasuke sliced off the target's head with practiced ease and turned to stare at the 3 remaining Anbu. I would assume you got our message from 6.5 months ago. This is your first warning. We got to the target first, so it was ours by right. His tail still lodged in the man's throat, Naruto picked the mask off the ANBU's face. This was a face he didn't recognize, so he pulled out his new bingo book he'd nabbed off a Kiri Anbu squad who had tried to take them on not too long ago and began shifting through it. He did not find the face in any of the sections, so he looked up at the remaining 3 masked Konoha shinobi. No wonder he's a nobody. Charging in there like an idiot, I'm surprised someone didn't kill him sooner. He's not worth anything, so I'll give him back. Naruto wrapped another tail around the man's waist and stopped applying the chakra to his first tail. He ripped it back out of the man's neck and used the tail around his waist to hurl the lifeless body back at the other 3. They caught the body and were shocked when the force of the throw forced them back several meters. Another of them withdrew the standard issue Anbu katana and got ready to charge when the captain stopped him. Do you want to end up like this? The man grunted and sheathed his katana. Sasuke turned back to the head, picking it up by the hair and formed 3 hand seals, before placing his palm on the man's head to use the preservation jutsu to make sure the head wouldn't decay or smell before they delivered it. Sasuke handed it to Naruto and Naruto slipped it into a specially designed body bag for heads. Sealing the bag, he gave the Anbu a last look of contempt and a snort before they both left to their employer to receive the bounty on their target. A month later, they were just about to kill another target in the Earth country when a single amnin dropped from his vantage point and sighed at the boys. Seems I got here a bit too late. Naruto shrugged as he punched one of the target's bodyguards in the chest hard enough to break his sternum and then followed it up by breaking his neck with a tail. Sasuke dispatched the last bodyguard and their target looked at the boys in fear. Who are you? Naruto smiled sadistically at the man. Uchiha Sasuke, one of the 2 remaining Uchihas and Uzumaki Naruto, container and mate of the Kyuubi no Kitsune, Queen of Demons. Say hi to Shinigami for me will you? I've got some personal issues with him. The man was trying to get his head around this revelation. Kyuubi is. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Female. Very much so. Naruto plunged a kunai into the man's voice box and out through the back of the spine, ending his life instantly. After severing the head and preparing it for transport, they saw the amnin looking at them in something akin to respect. I'd never thought I'd get to meet you too. You're pretty famous, you know. Sasuke shrugged in indifference. We don't care about fame. We just want to finish off Akatsuki. Now that got the nin's attention. Akatsuki. Those 9 weirdos. Naruto looked at him in interest. How much do you know about them? The amnin smiled and made a beckoning motion with his hand. Nothing's free in life. Naruto shrugged and chucked the body bag to the amnin, who caught it in surprise. The look of surprise morphed to that of a grin. Handing over a bounty of this size would merit more than a bit of info on Akatsuki. I suppose I could pass on a jutsu or 2. Naruto and Sasuke smiled. They still had more than enough cash to give up this kill in exchange for things money can't buy. The amnin sat down and told them everything about Akatsuki he knew. Besides the fact that he knew there was 9 of them and their appearances and jutsus were unique, the only 2 he knew about in specific were Uchiha Itachi and Hoshigaki Kisame. I happened to see both of them about 3 months ago when I was taking care of a nobody in the Falls village. Apparently, they were looking for something, but I didn't ask them. I got the impression it wouldn't be healthy. Naruto nodded. The lead was not exactly brand new, but it was far more current than what they had before. The Amnin looked up at the cloudless sky as he thought about what to teach them. Once he had decided, he looked back at them. I'd assume that both of you specialize in Kaiten jutsus, right? The both nodded and the Amnin smiled. There's a Suten jutsu that complements Kaiten jutsus quite well. It's called Suten, Kokuen no Jutsu. Sasuke's eyes narrowed. Black mist technique. The nin nodded. It produces a black mist from your body that rises into the air and causes it to rain. But not just any sort of rain, pure crude oil. Now that would be useful. Crude oil was extremely flammable, and a rain of it would definitely increase the effects of a simple Hausenka no Jutsu almost 30-fold. Sasuke's Sharingan activated, signifying he was ready. The nin nodded and formed the seals, announcing them as he went. Tora, Hebi, Tora, Suten, Kokuen no Jutsu. A black mist came off the Amnin's body and rose into the sky. Not 20 seconds later, the first drop of oil fell from the sky. It was quickly followed by a shower of oil that lasted about 30 seconds. The nin stopped the jutsu and the rain stopped shortly afterwards. Sasuke nodded. Got it. Naruto nodded. He didn't need to learn the jutsus right off the bat, as he could just relearn them from Sasuke later. The Amnin thought about what to teach them next. Which Suten jutsus do you know? They recounted their rather limited collection of Suten jutsus. The Amnin nodded. I'll teach you 3 more. Suten, Suryuden no Jutsu, Suten, Daibakufu no Jutsu and Suten, Sushoa. They agreed. Luckily, there was a small creek nearby that was fed by an underground spring. The Amnin performed each one which Sasuke copied. After he had finished, they thanked him and he disappeared from sight, leaving Sasuke to teach the jutsus to Naruto. It took several hours to learn all of them with the Kyuubi's help. At about midday, they went to a nearby town to recuperate. Next morning, Naruto and Sasuke were staying in the only inn in the town, or what should probably be called a collection of buildings. Naruto awoke to the glaring sunlight streaming through the only grimy window in their room with Kyuubi in his arms. Nothing unusual there. Kyuubi's eyes shot open when he looked at her and she leaned in, giving him a quick kiss on the lips. Anything more serious and it would probably end up in another all-day love-making session. Sasuke would put up with it during the night, but during the day he'd made it very clear that he didn't like it one bit. After Kyuubi had gone back to her cage, Naruto got dressed and used a rather powerful genjutsu to cloak himself so as not to make too much of a scene at breakfast. As he walked down the stairs, he was acutely aware that his older brother, while under a similar genjutsu to him, was staring vehemently at another couple who were sharing an intimate moment. Naruto sighed and took a seat next to him. Anarchy, you really need to let someone else in. Sasuke turned to give Naruto a glare, but instead of seeing the usual smirk or the less usual mock concern, he saw true concern and even a hint of worry in his eyes. Sasuke sighed and sat back in his chair. For once, he spoke his thoughts. The reason I don't let someone in is because I don't want to get attached to someone who will be following us around and Itachi will use as a hostage when the time comes to kill him. Naruto had to agree. It was a valid point. There weren't many females in this Nukenon business, and all of them they had met were rather intent on making sure that they did not end up succumbing to the whims of a male, despite how some of them saw Naruto act with Kyuubi. They usually dismissed it as something like, if he did, she'd just kill him. To an extent, that was also true, however, Naruto didn't for a different reason. It's because he saw her as his equal in every way, shape and form and wouldn't do it even if he had to. Naruto looked at Sasuke with a defeated look. I'd let Kyuubi spend a night with you, but, as if to illustrate the implication, Naruto felt a rather strong feeling of disgust coming from the seal, or more directly, his lover, which the seal was protecting him from. He sighed. She's not too thrilled with the idea. Sasuke shrugged and stood up, looking at Naruto with a questioning glance, which in this situation meant, what do you want to eat? Naruto thought for a moment. Bacon and eggs, and if possible, a bowl of miso ramen. Sasuke shook his head in disbelief. The bacon and eggs was understandable, but ramen for breakfast. It was almost as unbelievable as the legendary sucker of a Sannin winning at gambling. With that, Sasuke made his way over to the counter. In a seedy gambling den somewhere nearby, a rather well-endowed woman with blonde pigtails was just about to bet the last of her money on a game of chew or han. Just as she lifted the cup off the die, she let form a rather loud sneeze, which knocked the die closest to her over, turning the chew to a han. Someone's talking about me again. She rubbed her nose and looked at the die in disbelief before turning to her raven-haired assistant. Shizune, is that han? Shizune nodded, dumbfounded. Soon'd leap into the air as the other men in the gambling den looked at it in disbelief. Soon'd raked in the money she had won, quite pleased with herself. When I find whoever did that, I'll have to thank them. With Sasuke and Naruto. Sasuke was carrying the tray of food back to his table when he let forth a rather loud sneeze. His eyes closed for a brief second and he didn't see the leg of the chair that the man next to him had pushed out and his toe caught the chair, making him lose his balance before toppling over, the food unfortunately spilling over Naruto, who was none too pleased. Naruto stared at Sasuke, both of their eyes twitching, saying the same thing. I'm going to hurt whoever talked about us behind our back. Sasuke nodded in agreement as he used a specialized jutsu to clean the mess up and silence the few sniggers from the occupants of the room with a massive spike of killer intent. Back with Soon'd. Soon'd sneezed and again knocked over the dice just as she lifted the cup off the dice. Shizune was ecstatic, but Soon'd was wary. Despite the nickname, legendary sucker, she still won, if only rarely. It was still once in a blue moon. However, she never won again straight after that unless something catastrophic was going to happen. Soon'd took her winnings and looked at Shizune. Shizune, we're leaving. Shizune stared in surprise at her mentor. But Soon'd-sama, you were winning. Soon'd narrowed her eyes. That's exactly the point. I don't win 2 times in a row. Unless something like that will happen. Shizune caught the implication and nodded. She picked up the third member of the trio, their female pig Tonton, and they left the gambling den with their 2 suitcases of money. Once they walked outside, they felt the temperature drop several degrees and they looked around. 2 nondescript men were staring daggers at them. The slightly older one pointed at Soon'd. You. Soon'd looked at the man with disinterest. Got a problem? The other man sneered. Probably the fact that you made us look like idiots. Soon'd wasn't the kind of person who would forget the face of someone she made light of. I've never seen you before. The older one grunted. Who said you had to see us to make us look like idiots? The trio of females were rather confused. The town members were also watching this in interest. Look, I don't have time to waste with idiots like you. The younger one smiled as Soon'd turned and started walking off. I don't remember giving you the right to leave. That did it. Soon'd whipped around and stared at the man in anger. Since when did I have to ask the right to leave? The younger one smirked. Since the time we killed your former teammate and became S-rank Nukanans capable of killing just about anyone. Soon'd and Shizune's eyes shot up as they looked at them in horror. Your. Naruto smiled as they both released their modified henge, showing Naruto and Sasuke in all the glory. That's right. Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Naruto. Just for effect, they released the partial stage 2 seal, much to everyone's shock. The townspeople scrambled inside to get away from them. Naruto snorted. So typical of humans, they fear and hate what they don't understand. How foolish. Sasuke smirked. He'd come to an understanding recently that the reason his brother had murdered his clan was not exactly a crime. After he'd learnt about their hunger for power and their need to dominate everyone, he'd begun to see that Itachi had been right to leave Konoha. However, what he would not forgive him for was murdering the clan. He could have chosen to just leave the clan and the village instead of murdering them. When they next met Itachi, he was going to get a full explanation for the reasons of Itachi's actions. He also had to admit, Itachi could see humans as they truly were, arrogant, selfish, hypocritical bastards. He focused back on the 3 females in front of him, or more specifically, the rather stuffed suitcases. He aimed the next sentence at Naruto. Seems I was right. You liking ramen for breakfast was almost as unbelievable as her winning. Soon'd was torn. Here were 2 S-rank Nukanans staring daggers at her who had ended a major threat to her village, and also apparently caused her winning streak. However, they seemed displeased about it. So, I have you to thank for this. Soon'd indicated the suitcases. Both boys nodded. I guess the second sneeze I had was in answer to you threatening me after I caused you an accident thanking you. They nodded again, making Tsunade rub a temple with one hand. Sorry, I guess. Both boys shrugged. Whatever. Sasuke stiffened before sighing. Itachi, stop hiding. Tsunade and Shizune looked at them in a confused manner but stumbled back when they saw the air shimmer and reveal Uchiha Itachi and Hoshigaki Kisame. Itachi looked at Sasuke. Hisashiburi Dana, Sasuke. Sasuke turned to face his brother of so many years. Indeed it has. I suppose you're here for Naruto. Kisame smiled as he hoisted Samehada over his shoulder. Yup. Sasuke stared at Itachi. I want an explanation. Itachi looked directly at Sasuke without saying a word. Why did you murder our clan? There were other ways you could have done it. Itachi's eyebrows shot up. Before his lips almost cracked a smile. For that very reason. Everyone else present looked at Itachi in confusion as he explained. Apart from my hatred of the clan, I killed them and goaded you to see if you were any better than them. If you had failed, you would have attempted to kill me by now. Sasuke sighed and walked over to a bench and motioned Naruto and Itachi to sit down. Apparently, this was going to be a long talk. Naruto looked at Tsunade. This does not concern you. I would suggest leaving. Tsunade nodded and hightailed it out of there, Shizune leaving with her. They knew when they were outgunned, and they had never been more so than now. Itachi took a seat to Sasuke's left while Naruto was on Sasuke's right. Kisame saw that he too had no real place in this, so stood off to the side, grinning at the people hiding behind shuttered windows. Sasuke sighed. Itachi, I can understand why you did it, but I don't think it warranted killing them for it. You could have done what Jiraiya and Tsunade did, and requested indefinite leave. Itachi looked at Sasuke with a look that could only be described as respect. What changed your outlook? Sasuke turned to Naruto. Naruto did. He's one of the few who could understand me. Itachi looked at Naruto and nodded. Thank you. Naruto shrugged. No problem. There was silence for a number of minutes before Sasuke turned to Itachi. Brother or not, if you hurt my friends, I will kill you. Itachi nodded slowly. Naruto looked at Itachi. And if you ever hurt my brother or my mate, I will kill you. Itachi looked at Naruto with a slightly raised eyebrow. You and Kyuubi-san are mates. Naruto nodded. Who better than one who shares my every thought, every dream, every memory and every emotion? Itachi couldn't refute the logic in that. He looked at Naruto with a blank expression, belying the thoughts going through his mind. How is she in bed? Naruto, Kyuubi and Sasuke face-faltered while Kisame laughed. You've always been the weird one of the pair of us, Itachi-san. Itachi looked at Kisame. I hardly think so. I don't look like I had to adapt to life on land instead of the sea. Kisame growled as he, playfully, swung Samehada at Itachi, who blocked it with the palm of a hand. Itachi turned back to Naruto. Well, Naruto, Sasuke and Kyuubi sweat dropped. Naruto closed his eyes as he established a connection with Kyuubi. Do you want me to tell them? Naruto could tell Kyuubi was smiling. If you tell them at all, make sure to rub it in. Naruto sighed as he opened his eyes and looked up at the clouds in the sky. She's better than any human woman could ever hope to be. We could possibly go for 3 days straight with only 30-second breaks in between each session before stopping. The only reason we'd have to stop after the 3 days is to attend daily needs like eating. Kisame and Itachi were looking at Naruto in awe as he continued. Kisame spoke every male's mind in the general vicinity. I don't care about her, but you can go that long. Naruto smiled. This was the perfect way to get back at every other person around them. To show that he and his partner were much more, male, and, female, than any others here. Define, long. If you meant staying power, then longer. I have to stop for the same reasons she does. However, if you meant length of my tool, then 11 inches. 12 if I'm really aroused. Suddenly, every male bar Naruto overhearing or taking part in the conversation felt that their masculinity was very inadequate, if the downward glances at their crotches were any indication. She can also control her muscles to such an extent that she could make me orgasm at any time she wanted, no matter how long ago we started. Now all of the females listening bar Kyuubi felt greatly inadequate. Kisame dropped Samehada with his mouth open while Itachi was giving a rather perverted grin. Sasuke was holding his head in his hands. He didn't want to hear this at all. Naruto gave Sasuke an apologetic look and smiled at Itachi. Since when were you a pervert, Itachi? Itachi's perverted look returned to that oh-so-famous blank expression. I had to have some way of staying sane in Anbu. Naruto and Sasuke sweat dropped. He'd become a pervert at the age of 13. That wasn't right. This was by far the most surreal experience they'd ever had. They were sitting down with their enemies and talking like a close group of male friends did. Naruto sighed as he stood up, catching the others' attention. Naruto gave them something which few got to see, a genuine smile. Well, I suppose we came to some sort of an understanding. Kisame shrugged and strapped Samehada to his back while Sasuke and Itachi got up. They separated off and looked at each other. Sasuke looked intently at Itachi before his gaze softened. Itachi, I forgive you. Itachi smiled slightly and nodded. Good to see that you didn't follow the clan down the path to madness, Sasuke. Naruto looked at the two members of Akatsuki. Since you failed to capture me, what are you going to say to the others? Kisame shrugged. Last time, Jiraiya saved you. Both of you could easily kill him now, so that's all they have to know. They could live with that. If they were going to let him off the hook, they weren't going to complain. Itachi gave one last nod before the two purple nail polish wearing nins disappeared. Naruto turned to Sasuke. I'm sorry about that. Sasuke immediately shrugged it off and turned to leave, Naruto following him. Naruto looked at his watch. 10:37 a.m. If they stepped on it, they would be able to reach the next town by lunch. The people of the town they had left started coming back out, dazed to have seen so many high-ranking Konoha nins in one place by sheer coincidence. Lunchtime in the next town. Sasuke and Naruto arrived in town just in time to see a rather shocked man go flying through a wall and a woman screeching at him from inside the building. Don't even think about trying that again, pervert. Or I'll castrate you. Sasuke and Naruto sweat dropped. There was only one woman with that strength and that voice. We had to follow her, didn't we? Naruto shrugged as they walked into the bar without the usual modified henges. Tsunade was already making a scene. Few of the people noticed the two boys entering the room as they walked up to the line of wanted posters. Naruto and Sasuke drew their swords and stared, slashing them as bounty hunters did when they had killed the target. The bartender shouted out to them. What the hell do you think you two are doing? Naruto looked at him. When was the last time you updated these? The man though for a moment. About 4 months ago. Naruto sighed and slashed the last one, leaving only a single one remaining. All of the ones we slashed are dead by our hands. Everyone started murmuring and looking warily at these two boys as Tsunade looked up from the hold in the wall and saw the two boys. She scowled at them. Why are you following us? Sasuke looked at her in a disinterested, rather bored look. Who said our business had anything to do with you? You think just like the other remaining Sannin and the one we already killed. They think the world revolves around them. Grow up and act your age. Tsunade's eyes twitched at being told to grow up by a boy over 30 years her junior. However, she knew if she attacked them, they would definitely kill her with little problem, but also her strength would kill innocent bystanders. Tsunade looked up at Sasuke in shock to see his Sharingan active. How did he read your mind? Because I can. Tsunade's eye twitched. She was above these childish games. Apparently not. Tsunade's eye was twitching rapidly. Don't think of anything like that would work. Naruto was smirking. The Sharingan was very useful for a number of things. One of them was hypnotism. Tsunade turned on her heel and stormed out, leaving Naruto and Sasuke to gloat over the victory. They took a seat at a spare table while the waiter hesitantly approached them. Naruto looked at him in annoyance. Just because we hate Konoha and its ninjas doesn't mean we're going to hate you unless you give us a reason to. The waiter nodded and approached the table. What can I get you two? Naruto sighed and looked up at the chalkboards hanging on the wall before something caught his eye. 3 of those works burgers, thanks. The waiter raised an eyebrow as he wrote that down. Sasuke looked at another board. I'll have a lasagna, whatever the hell that is. The waiter nodded and left to take their orders to the kitchen. Naruto looked at Sasuke. I'm going to go talk to her. Sasuke nodded. The majority of the people in the room expected him to get up and walk out, but to their surprise, Naruto formed hand seals and then went to sleep. Kyuubi's cage. Naruto trudged through the corridors and eventually ended up in front of the Kyuubi's cage. He sighed as he looked around. You deserve so much more than this. Kyuubi smiled at Naruto, who slipped in between the bars and embraced his mate. I wish I could change this into something more fitting. Kyuubi pulled back from him and looked into his eyes. This is your mindscape, so technically, you can do anything here within certain limits. Naruto looked at her in interest. And what are those limits? Kyuubi smiled at him. Whatever it is must have corridors. It must also have pipes and a sealed room with him. She pointed at the piece of paper sealing the cage shut. Guarding it. Naruto nodded. He racked his brains for ideas before smiling at one in particular. Fit for a queen. Kyuubi decided not to read his thoughts for the sake of a surprise. Naruto closed his eyes and concentrated. The yellowed room began to waver before a blinding flash of white light was emitted. When Kyuubi and Naruto opened their eyes, they were inside a lavish room that was indeed fit for a queen. There was a massive futon to the side, as well as other luxuries such as a heated spa, a mass of books in a miniature library, a desk nearby with writing utensils, and a bowl of fruit on a stand next to the futon. Kyuubi glomped Naruto. Thank you, Naru-chan. No problems, Q-chan. Kyuubi kissed Naruto rather passionately when Naruto remembered where his real body was and reluctantly pulled back. You can thank me later. Making love right now would be a bad idea. Kyuubi mock pouted before she threw off her clothes and ran at the spa, and much to Naruto's dismay, bombed in. The water went everywhere as Naruto sweat dropped when Kyuubi broke the surface and purred contently. She gave Naruto a suggestive wink and blew a kiss at him. You'll definitely be getting something special tonight, Naruto. Naruto smiled and walked out the door of the room to see the guard, also known as his father, there. The guard looked at him, staring at his eyes with the same blue ones he had. We'll have to have a talk later, Naruto. There's a lot I want to say. Naruto did the only thing he could. He fainted, which dispelled him from his own mindscape. The Yondaime sweat dropped. I guess since my soul originally manifested as a piece of paper, it's no surprise he thought I wasn't sentient. Back in real time, the waiter was approaching with the food the two boys had ordered when Naruto woke up. Sasuke saw something was wrong and looked at Naruto in a concerned fashion. What happened? Naruto sighed as he leant back. I didn't think a little interior decorating would do something like that. Naruto had long ago told Sasuke about his mindscape, so Sasuke understood instantly what he had meant by interior decorating. Sasuke then realized that this look was remarkably similar to the one that he wore after waking up from his first time with Kyuubi. Sasuke thought for a moment before his eyes shot open in realization. Naruto looked at Sasuke and nodded. Yeah, I didn't believe it either. Sasuke shook his head in disbelief as he took the plate of what he assumed to be lasagna and took a bite. Naruto took his burger and took a huge chunk out of it. Everyone except Sasuke watched in amazement as Naruto ate one burger after another. He'd even asked for a fourth, which the cook hastily whipped up. After the fourth burger was consumed, Naruto sat back, content. However, the mood was disturbed when Naruto's danger sense went off and he caught several shuriken on his fingers. Naruto turned to see who the troublemaker was and sighed when he saw it was a squad of Anbu. Konoha Anbu, if their tattoo was anything to go by. Naruto looked at him, shrugging off the killer intent like it was nothing. What the hell do you want? Can't you see we were enjoying a meal? The one in front stepped forward. Uzumaki Naruto, Uchiha Sasuke, by consorting with Uchiha Itachi and Hosoka Kisame, you have violated the law of all shinobi nations. Naruto laughed at the man. Last time I checked, we didn't have Hitai 8 on. No, why? Because we don't belong to one of your shinobi nations. This is your second warning. Next time, Konoha burns to the ground. Now, leave or I may decide to consider this the third warning as well. The Anbu weren't sure what to do. They could attack and get the third warning, or they could leave and make Konoha lose face. Naruto stood and left some notes on the table to pay for the food. He walked right up to the Konoha Anbu and released his partial level 2 seal, much to everyone's horror. I assume since you're still here you want to keep going. I'd rather take this outside if that's the case. There are too many bystanders here. Naruto walked straight through them with Sasuke right behind him. They stood out in the street and stared at them. Well, coming. The Anbu captain must have given a signal, because the four of them disappeared. Sasuke smirked. If that's what Konoha has to offer, they wouldn't stand a chance once the third warning expired. Sure, they'd have to release their full level 2 seal for the hordes of Anbu and the Hokage. Naruto's grumbling brought Sasuke out of his train of thought. I suppose I should go and talk to him. Sasuke nodded as they made their way to the local inn, paying for 2 rooms and decided to take today off. That evening, Naruto and Sasuke had found an inn for the day off fairly quickly. After they had paid for 2 rooms, they walked up the stairs and separated. Naruto put a double-strength sound and chakra barrier over the room, so that no one would know what he was doing. He felt Kyuubi whining to be let out, which he obliged. Once he had summoned her, he stiffened slightly. Kyuubi normally released copious amounts of pheromones during the private time, but this was insane. He could already feel himself becoming aroused. He released his partial cursed seal, pulling Kyuubi to him, and pressing his body full against hers before she could even say anything. Both of them mashed their lips together, getting involved in a large-scale tongue war. Finally, Naruto pulled back for air and looked at her with a mixture of feral anticipation and worry crossing his face. Q-chan, is something wrong? Kyuubi pushed him back onto the futon and began rubbing her rather ample chest over his kimono, using her voice that was husky with lust to further seduce him. No, Naru-chan, there's absolutely nothing wrong. I said I was going to give you something special tonight, and that's what I'm going to give you. Naruto nodded and kissed her again. Almost an hour later. Finally, they let their tails go and they dropped to the ground, completely content. It was then that Naruto remembered the burning sensation he had felt on his left hand. He lifted it to see the kitsune tattoo was now surrounded by spiraling tails. Apart from the physical changes, he felt his personality start making subtle twists. His darker emotions came to the front, while he felt the slight hunger for food he had replaced by a hunger for something else, which he could not place. He also felt the part of his insides that was reserved for the Kusanagi pulse once before dying down. Kyuubi saw this and smiled at him. Congratulations on your new rank, Naru-chan. Naruto smiled as he tried to release his partial cursed seal, only to find that he couldn't. Kyuubi smiled. You are the king of Kitsune. Those are your 9 tails, signifying you as the new Kyuubi. Naruto raised an eyebrow. And what would that make you? Kyuubi snorted. Your completely devoted and loyal lapdog of a wife. Naruto could hear the sarcasm dripping off her voice and chuckled, hugging her. You know I wouldn't stay with you if you were. Kyuubi snickered and hugged him. I know. Both of them were aware that the barrier surrounding the room was beginning to undo itself. It was not Sasuke, that was for sure. Finally, it came completely undone and there was a knock at the door. Uzumaki-san, are you decent? Naruto snorted and pulled on his kimono, while Kyuubi made some clothes appear out of thin air for herself. Now we are. Would you mind if we had a word with you? Naruto sighed and shrugged, leaning back against the wall, Kyuubi doing the same. Sure. Naruto smirked as the door opened partially and froze, the reek of their activities hitting the Anbu at the door. He called into them. Would you mind if we discuss this downstairs? Naruto shrugged as he looked to Kyuubi, who nodded and reappeared back in the seal. Naruto called out to them. I don't smell much better than this room, so it'll be several moments. The Anbu shut the door and they began walking up the corridor to the next room, obviously getting Sasuke as well. Naruto threw his kimono off and walked into the bathroom, taking a very quick shower before getting out and using chakra to dry himself perfectly before putting his kimono back on. Luckily, it didn't smell whatsoever, so he opened the door and stepped outside to see a single Anbu waiting at the stairs. The Anbu looked at him and nodded. Glad you decided to join us. Naruto waved it off. As if I was going to run. Naruto let the unsaid, I could have killed you with no problems hang as they both walked down the stairs to see Sasuke already at a table with the other 3 Konoha Anbu members standing around the room, or in the case of the squad captain, sitting at the table. Naruto took a seat next to Sasuke who raised an eyebrow at him. What's with the seal? Naruto showed him his tattooed palm, which made Sasuke's eyes widen considerably. They both turned back to the Anbu captain. I have been asked to come here directly by Hokage-sama himself to ask for both of you to talk to him. It seems that the 2 chances that have been used were used directly against Hokage-sama's explicit orders. After the bounty trade for Orochimaru and Kabuto's heads Han ordered all people of Konoha to leave you alone unless attacked first. We cannot confirm who did what, so we would like your side of the events in an attempt to clear this up. Naruto cocked his head to the side, trying to think of what brought this up. Obviously, the Godime Hokage was pulling at straws. I'll say this, regardless of defied orders or not, an attack is still an attack. I've wanted to meet this, Han, for a while now. Sasuke nodded in agreement. We'll go, but remember, one more chance and that's it. No compromises. The Anbu nodded and stood up. Do you have any pressing issues to attend to before we leave? Naruto nodded. I need to talk to the Yondaime. Everyone was silent as they tried to process this. Sasuke sighed and shook his head, explaining Naruto's apparently strange request. The seal that holds the Kyuubi at bay is guarded by Yondaime's soul. Until earlier today, the soul manifested as a piece of paper. Naruto did a little interior decorating, making the Yondaime into a guard instead of a piece of paper. He hasn't had the chance to talk to him yet. The Anbu nodded slowly and the three others began walking out the door. The captain looked specifically at Naruto. Please let us know when you're finished. Naruto nodded and formed several hand seals, before slumping forward. Sasuke sat back, carefully watching the Anbu out of the corner of his eyes as the masked man walked out the door to wait with his team. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto walked through the several corridors he had memorized until he found himself in front of the door, seeing the Yondaime staring at the wall in front of him. Yondaime turned to look at Naruto with a small smile. Hey, Naru. Get to the point. I'm very pissed off at you right now. The Yondaime sighed, lowering and shaking his head. I really can't say I blame you. Naruto, do you know why I chose you as the one to bear this burden? Naruto scowled and took a seat on the opposite side of the hallway, while Yondaime sat down on his side. Quite frankly, Naruto didn't know or care. Amuse me. The Yondaime nodded slowly. You were the only child born that day, and the only one capable of holding it in. If I had the option, I would have placed the burden on another without second thought. Naruto, my final wish which the old fart, sensei as well as Kakashi were witness to was that you were to be treated and hailed as the savior of mankind. Naruto scoffed and held up his tattooed hand. They turned me into a self-fulfilling prophecy. I am the Kyuubi no Kitsune. The Yondaime sighed and sat back. Which brings me to the next point. Naruto raised an eyebrow at this. After watching the treatment you were given, I'm abandoning my position of the Yondaime Hokage and will support you in whatever action you chose to use against Konoha. Frankly, after what I thought I taught them, I'm appalled I ever took the position. That's a promise. Naruto practically had a heart attack at this, but was not prepared for what came next. Naruto, my soul has been continuously draining ever since this seal was put in place. As it is, the double 4-element seal won't last more than another fortnight. The reason I chose a slip of paper was because this form used more of my soul to maintain. Naruto was unsure of what to say. He fully intended to come down here and give him a verbal cussing that would have made Tayuya blush, remembering what little he did of her. However, all that showed in the Yondaime's eyes was regret, pain, sorrow and a begging for forgiveness so desperate Naruto had never seen anything like it before. Naruto was unsure of what to do. As the king of demons, should he put him to death, or maybe torture him? Yondaime snickered, making Naruto look at him. Don't forget, I can read your mind too. Naruto growled. I'd prefer you don't. Yondaime shrugged. I don't have a choice in the matter. Whether I want to or not, your thoughts are passed through me to reach her. Yondaime jerked a thumb back at the doorway next to him. Naruto looked at the Yondaime. What would happen if we brought Q-chan out here or you stepped inside and we sorted this out? Yondaime looked stumped for a moment. I'm really not sure. When I created this seal, I had no idea this is how it would turn out. Naruto really couldn't fault him there. This was designed after all to let Naruto take the Kyuubi with him to the afterlife when he died. Naruto got up and pushed open the gold-rimmed oak doors and stepped inside. Kyuubi immediately glomped him, making Naruto stumble back several steps. Kyuubi's hand passed through the doorway, which made the doors slam shut, knocking both of them inside. They heard the door handles turning before they opened to reveal Yondaime, who looked very hesitant before he finally stepped inside. Kyuubi was fighting her internal anger and hard for her killer that was in front of her. Yondaime stayed at the doorway, staring at the Kyuubi who glared back at him. Naruto sighed, trying to break the tension by kissing her on the cheek. We don't have much time. We have to sort this out. Both of them nodded slowly in agreement. Finally, Yondaime sighed. You can probably tell the seal's been weakening, right? Kyuubi nodded, but smiled sadistically. And I know just how to fix it. Both boys looked at her expectantly, watching her smile widen. Naruto spoke first. How? Kyuubi kept smiling at the Yondaime, making him shudder. I'll tell you on one condition. Tell Naru-chan who his father was. Kyuubi was laughing up a storm mentally, while the color drained from Yondaime's face. Naruto turned slowly to Yondaime. Yondaime's eyes locked with Naruto's, and Naruto saw something he'd rather not. The striking resemblance he used to have to the Yondaime. Oh, you've got to be fucking kidding me. Kyuubi smiled widely while the Yondaime fell to his knees and touched his head to the floor. I'm so sorry, Naruto, I wanted to tell you, but I don't care. Both of them looked at Naruto, whose normally blue eyes were turning blood red. His tails were placing slash marks into the floor as they flew around, showing his absolute anger and hatred that was directed at just about everyone and everything. Naruto stormed up to the Yondaime and pulled him by his collar upwards, dragging the full-grown man up to face level. Yondaime was actually crying silently seeing his son so angry at him. He hung his head and whispered just loud enough for Naruto to hear. Please kill me. Naruto raised an eyebrow at the request. If it makes you feel even the slightest bit better, by all means do so. It's the least I deserve. Naruto's eyes softened slightly, before hardening again. This changeover happened several more times before Naruto dropped him, much to the Kyuubi's amusement and the Yondaime's relief. You're not even worth killing. However, what will me worth it is having you manifest when we go back to Konoha and chew them out. And by God you had better. Kyuubi smiled as she thought about the possibilities of what to do with herself and the Yondaime as well as Naruto and Sasuke to the villagers' minds. All they needed was Uchiha Itachi and Orochimaru and it would be fun for all the family. You would make a fine king of hell, I must say. I feel sorry for the demons when we get back there. Would that be the third strike? Naruto looked at her, trying to decide. He was obviously very, very tempted to say yes it was, but he shook his head. No, but I'm willing to bet it will lead to it. Both boys now turned to Kyuubi, who they were expecting to fulfill her part of the deal, which she did. Well, if Naru-chan was to summon both of our souls, we could go on a killing spree in Konoha. I'm sure that Hokage's body would be rather fitting for you. I'd rather take several others, such as that white-haired old king of perverts as well as several others, fitting people. Yondaime nodded. He didn't exactly like the idea, but he had promised Naruto he would support him in any of his action, and he never broke a promise. Yondaime reached into his cloak and pulled out an original Hiraishin kunai suited to him, which he chucked at Naruto. Good luck, Naruto. All me when you're ready. Kyuubi smiled as Naruto gave her a last kiss and ejected himself from the mindscape. When he snapped open his eyes, Sasuke was staring at him, while the four Anbu were watching him cautiously. Naruto felt the weight of the Yondaime's Hiraishin kunai, which he kept hidden in his sleeve. Naruto smiled toothily at the Anbu. Well, that talk was refreshing. Let's go. The Anbu nodded and left the room. Naruto immediately turned to Sasuke. They are screwed. He was my dad. Sasuke almost choked, but managed to nod as they both got up and walked outside. The Anbu began leading the way. Naruto was practically bursting with anticipation of burning the village to the ground. A week later. Over the past week, everyone noticed Naruto's demeanor darkening and the Anbu got a terrible sense of foreboding from him. Naruto had assured Sasuke that he was fine, telling him it was due to the events that took place on the afternoon after they had met Tsunade. After a week, they had finally made it. Before them down the road were the gates of Konoha. Once they reached it, the Chunin guards gasped when they saw Naruto at Sasuke, but said nothing as they let them pass seeing the Anbu with them. Naruto was acutely aware of every single person stopping what they were doing, many dropping what they were doing to run away in fear. Sasuke snorted as they were led to the Hokage Tower seeing people whispering things like, "It's the Uchiha. And he's come back to us." Frankly, Sasuke was more than fed up with them. The Anbu ignored the villagers and led them into the Hokage's office. It was then that they got the first view of the Godime Hokage, Han. He was a rather tall 20-something well-built male who had an incredible amount of wisdom in his golden brown eyes, as well as the kind of experience gained only from a life on the edge. Unfortunately, the majority of his physical features were hidden by the Hokage robes. Han stood to greet them. Uzumaki Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke, I presume. Sasuke shrugged, while Naruto shook his head. To you, it's the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Han raised an eyebrow as he offered them the seats in front of his desk, which they took. Really? And why is that? Last I was informed, the Kyuubi was sealed inside you. Naruto sighed and sat back. As of 1 week ago, I gained the title of King of Demons. After I finish here, I'm going to hell and sorting 'em out. Han said nothing to that. Well, I suppose we should get straight to the point. There is a small extremist faction within the Anbu. Since we shut Root down with the help of one of its members who I believe you have had the pleasure of meeting almost a year ago, they have sprung up, identifying themselves as Yondaim's Wish. Naruto scoffed, making the other occupants of the room look at him. You want to know what Yondaim's Wish was and still is? From the man's mouth himself just before we left the Earth Country, his final wish was that I be seen as a hero, the jailer of the Kyuubi no Kitsune and savior of all living things who held it back through sheer force of will alone. I would have thought you would have respected the final wish of the man that most in my position would call a father instead of turning me into a self-fulfilling prophecy. Han sat there trying to take in what Naruto had just said while Sasuke snorted. Oh, and if you feel that it is absolutely necessary to have witnesses in this room as well as 4 squads of Anbu right outside the door, then bring them inside and into plain sight or we will consider this your third strike. Han sighed and nodded. A section of the wall warped, revealing their former teammate, Haruno Sakura, their former sensei, Hitaki Kakashi as well as Jiraiya of the Sannin. The door opened, and all 16 Anbu walked into the room, shutting the door behind them. Naruto smirked. 20 in all, you know, you picked a very unlucky number to defend yourself with. Sasuke smiled and caught on. 1 tail for each of the Anbu and below, while leaving 2 for the rest of us. What I want to know is why, in a meeting with the rank of the beings present, she. Sasuke indicated Sakura with scorn. Is here. Somewhat out of place, I would think. Sakura stiffened and looked on the verge of tears but said nothing. Han was starting to get worried. Naruto and Sasuke had obviously come here for a reason, and to talk things over wasn't it? She is here because she was your former teammate. Both boys' bodies showed they clearly disagreed. Naruto looked at her out of the corner of his eye. No, she was never a part of Team 7, considering how many times she practically tried to kill herself, having to get us to pull her out of the line of fire. Kakashi was also a failure of a sensei, preaching everything was about teamwork when he showed favoritism towards Sasuke, which I personally had no problems with. Do you recall the last time that happened with a Genin team and their sensei? For those of you who can't, let me refresh your memory. Sandaim's prize student, Orochimaru went rogue. Team 7 only ever consisted of Sasuke, Kyuubi and I. Sakura and Kakashi were never a part of it, purely a means to an end. Kakashi winced at the verbal berating of his absolute failure, while Sakura slumped to the floor. While they were on the subject of the Kyuubi, Han wanted to verify a previous statement they had made. Kyuubi has 9 tails, correct? Naruto nodded. I do indeed. However, my tenant has another 9, leaving Sasuke and Arashi to deal with the last 2. Most of the people froze at the last name. Naruto looked casually at Jiraiya. Yes, your former student. Naruto turned to Kakashi. You former sensei. Naruto turned back to the front. And the person most would call my father. Naruto smirked and slowly pulled out Yondaim's Hiraishin kunai. If it wasn't for this, I'd have no chance of summoning him. I have my own which works only for me, but I can't remember his version of the seal. Naruto dropped the kunai, and as soon as it hit the ground, a streak of yellow shot out of Naruto's stomach and appeared in the middle of the room. When the streak returned to normal, everyone's jaw apart from Naruto, Sasuke and the Yondaims hit the floor. Jiraiya spoke first. Arashi, it really is you, I'd recognize that chakra anywhere, even with so little of it present. Arashi's wavering, ghostly spirit looked at his former sensei and student. Jiraiya, Kakashi, why did you ignore my final wish? You do realize I've seen every single thing that has happened to Naruto, right? Jiraiya was unable to talk until his eyes widened. But, if you're here, then what's stopping Kyuubi from getting out? Everyone stepped back from Naruto, except Naruto, Sasuke and Arashi. Absolutely nothing is stopping her from killing me and taking over my body. There were far too many revelations coming here at once. Not only did Naruto refer to the Kyuubi as a female, but said she did not want the chance of freedom. Sasuke sighed and sat back. Not surprising really. After all, Kyuubi and Naruto are mates, I would know. They're loud enough for me to have to learn the forced sleep technique to the point I can do it without hand seals, regardless of whether or not they use a sound barrier during one of their all-night sessions. Naruto smirked while practically everyone blushed at the rather crude hint. Naruto closed his eyes momentarily. When he opened them, he smiled. Q-chan wants to meet some of you. One of the Anbu snorted. Q-chan. Naruto's smile widened as he closed his eyes. Only I, her mate and companion of the past 17 years, has earned the right to address her with such affection and familiarity. Not even Sasuke, my brother, has earned that. Watch what you say, human. Everyone decided it was better not to tempt him again and kept quiet. Naruto looked at Han. I'm going to give you a choice. I can summon her in her full demonic glory, or her humanoid form. Which do you want? Summoning the Kyuubi again as a towering nine-tailed fox was an incredibly bad idea. People would cause a riot at the very least. Humanoid, please. Naruto nodded and bit his thumb, forming the hand seals before placing his hand on his leg. Kuchio's no jutsu. A cloud of human-sized smoke covered Naruto. Everyone who wasn't used to the massive amount of chakra used to summon her with such ease had varying ways of reacting, from shock to slight admiration. When the smoke cleared, Naruto was still there, but a humanoid fox in a very modest black kimono that hid her body well was sitting on his lap. Naruto placed his hands around her stomach and nuzzled his face into her back, making her purr. The strange thing, most people noticed that while both Arashi and Kyuubi were both souls only, Yondaim's soul seemed somehow much weaker than Kyuubi's, as if he was about to die. Sasuke sighed, bringing everyone back to the conversation. Could you two please wait until after this to start that again? Both of them shrugged, but not before Naruto whispered just loud enough for everyone in the room to hear, rubbing her stomach gently. The people at the front noticed a slight bulge in her stomach area. How are they? Kyuubi snorted. At the moment, fine. Another 6 weeks. Kyuubi got off Naruto and used several of her tails as a makeshift seat. Han's eyes narrowed. Based on the week it took you to get here and the information you've given to us, would I be correct in guessing you are pregnant? Kyuubi smiled triumphantly. Indeed I am. That is partly why Naruto is the new king of hell. Demons do not need to throw away large sums of money to exchange a few meaningless words and give each other a gold band just to get a piece of paper saying they are bound until death. A demon may mate with whoever they chose, but once they mate with another and produce heirs, they have entered a permanent relationship with the other that lasts beyond death. Naruto is the first one that I have offered the right to, which he has accepted, meaning he has taken the position of Lord of Demons and also my breeding partner. Han sighed and sat back, trying to think about how to make this work when an Anbu behind Kyuubi lost his self-control, unsheathing his katana and charged forward, aiming for Kyuubi's stomach from behind. Demon scum. Shi-ne. The Anbu tried to hold him back, but Kyuubi grabbed his throat with a tail. Naruto smiled and stood up. 3 strikes. Konoha is out. As the new king of demons, I declare a war on Konoha, starting. Everyone froze for a moment as the full implication of this washed over them. Naruto and Kyuubi did not give them the chance to recover and impaled all 16 Anbu members through various vital parts of their bodies. Now, Naruto roared, releasing his full stage 2 seal, making the majority of the people still standing shrink back as the black chakra exploded off him, shattering the glass of the office windows and hurling objects that weren't tied down away from him. Sasuke released his own level 2 seal and groaned as his wings ripped out of his back. It's been a while since I've used my true form. Sakura started backing away as Sasuke grabbed her throat. Kakashi was still horrified by everything happening around him, noticing too late as Sasuke chuckled darkly. I finally figured out why you're so stupid. Yes, you have an amazing amount of book smarts, but you have absolutely no common sense whatsoever. Sakura managed to gasp and pull enough air into her lungs to speak. Sasuke-kun, why? Sasuke snarled and sent a focused Chidori Nagashi through her, electrocuting her. After a while, he dropped her smoking, lifeless body to the ground. Stupid until the very end. Kakashi was about to move into action when he felt Naruto let of a paralyzing amount of killer intent. You dare attack my mate and offspring. Shi-ne. Naruto was about to completely eradicate this side of Konoha when he felt Kyuubi wrap a tail around his wrist. Naruto turned around and grinned toothily at the remaining 3 people who were backed up against the wall. Naruto turned to Kyuubi and smiled. Ah yes, I have to preserve bodies for your resurrection. Kyuubi smiled sweetly. Indeed, Naru-chan. By now, they heard screams and yells as a mob was gathering outside with anything that could be used as a weapon in their hands. Naruto grabbed Kyuubi with his tails and pulled her close. Remember how we both wanted to try mating and killing at the same time? I think now's a good chance. Kyuubi nodded and kissed Naruto quickly. Remember, I'm somewhat tender at the moment. Naruto nodded and took her out the door, leaving Sasuke and Arashi to deal with Kakashi, Jiraiya and Han. Sasuke sighed and bit his own thumb, forming the hand seals for a summoning. Kuchio's no jutsu. The Hokage's office exploded into smoke and then burst outwards. Once the cloud of smoke disappeared, everyone was paralyzed by seeing Manda, king of the snakes in the middle of Konoha. Manda looked up at his summoner and smiled. Sasuke, is this an offering? Sasuke smirked and crossed his arms over his chest. Then I don't mind if I do. Manda smiled before he looked down, seeing Jiraiya stepping out of the rubble that was the Hokage tower, and started forming hand seals. Manda lunged towards him, as Sasuke spoke. I don't care about the peasants, but please try and keep the bodies of those of Junin and above in rank somewhat intact. Manda smiled, ignoring as Jiraiya managed to dodge, leaving Manda to smash his head into a nearby building, pulling its screaming denizens out and swallowing them whole. Considering how many that leaves, I think I can oblige this once. Sasuke smiled, watching in pure, unbridled glee as the villagers saw the precious Uchiha-sama standing atop Manda, not bothering to lift a finger to stop it from ripping their corpses to pieces. However, their fun was soon cut short as another cloud of smoke came forth, revealing Gamabunta with Jiraiya and a badly injured Kakashi atop his head. Manda hissed in frustration. Oi, Sasuke, if you think I can kill certain targets while fighting him, then I'm voiding your contract with the snakes. I refuse to have a stupid summoner. Sasuke sighed while Jiraiya yelled out to Sasuke. Sasuke, do you know what you're doing? Sasuke struck a mock-thinking pose for a second. Let's see, I'm standing on the head of Manda in the middle of a village full of people, why don't you tell me, genius? Jiraiya ignored the insult to his title. Then why are you still wearing a Konoha Hitai 8? Technically, it was true that Sasuke was wearing a Konoha Hitai 8, but anyone with half a brain could tell there was something wrong with that. It seems that the genius Sannin are all actually quite stupid. Orochimaru never realized I had my free will until I stabbed my sword through his right-hand man's chest. Soon had thought the world revolved around her, thinking she was far more important than we were, until we brought her down from Cloud 9, and you didn't realize that this Konoha Hitai 8 is really. Sasuke casually passed a finger over the metallic leaf symbol to reveal it was actually the kanji for demon. Sasuke sighed and shook his head. I may have understood if the genjutsu had been advanced, but it was barely above a single henge. You really are an idiot, just like your teammates. And if you think I didn't notice you were buying time to hide the villagers, you just proved my point. Just then, a huge cone of blood red and black chakra shot out from nearby and ripped through the Hokage monument, destroying the shelters there and the people inside them. Gamabunta sighed and got ready for battle, unsheathing his knife and jumping at his long-time enemy. With Naruto and Kyuubi. Both Naruto and Kyuubi were outside, rolling around in the street, their kimonos only pulled up enough to allow them to mate. The bodies of several villagers and ninja who had been stupid enough to attempt to kill them since they had started were lying around in a pool of their own blood. Most people were now rather wary of the mating demons as they rolled around, hissing, moaning and growling at each other. Naruto smirked at Kyuubi, addressing her as much as the bystanders. You know, I would have thought this would be more fun. Everyone's favorite nine-tailed demon is back with her mate. Considering how compromising our position is, you think they'd jump at the chance to stop us breeding. Kyuubi smirked as a rather obese man ran in with some sort of ornamental katana, swinging in a wild downward slash at them. Damn demons. Naruto pierced a tail through his heart while Kyuubi his throat. The man dropped the katana and fell to the ground, spraying blood from his wounds as he went. Both of them sighed and continued mating. The others stared in horror at their fallen comrade that was dispatched as if he was not even worth acknowledging. Both of them moaned, getting close to the edge. Q-chan. I know, so am I. Naruto kissed Kyuubi, curling the corner of his lips. If they were going to attack at all, they would do so while they were in the height of pleasure with everything they had. Both of them reached their orgasms simultaneously and cried out. Every single human around them charged in, thinking they would be far too weak from their orgasm to defend themselves. However, they still had enough control, even in the throes of pleasure, to send chakra to their tails, making the hair stand out at a 90-degree angle from the skin and whipped them around, slicing people in half as they piled in for the kill. After over 50 villagers were killed, their orgasms died down and they slumped, while the villagers backed off, stopping their losses. Naruto recovered and laughed weakly. Who said you can't combine business with pleasure? I think we just did a fine job of it. Kyuubi nodded in agreement. Naruto kissed her blood-splattered face and smiled. You look so beautiful like that. Kyuubi laughed while the villagers glared. You don't look too bad yourself, handsome. Naruto wasn't much better than Kyuubi. Being on top, he tended to suffer most of the more meaty attacks of the villagers. Naruto kissed her bloody lips with his. Once he pulled back, he smiled, going for the next provocation. I'm kind of disappointed with myself. Kyuubi raised an eyebrow. And why is that? Naruto sighed, shaking his head. When I was 12, we committed a much greater massacre than this. I wanted something special for this occasion. Kyuubi smiled while the bystanders gasped. There hadn't been many massacres in recent times. Ah yes, the massacre of the wave, 256 humans killed. It was fun while it lasted. Naruto nodded in agreement. I'll never forget the feeling of them begging for mercy as I ripped them to pieces. Kyuubi laughed as the bystanders took the bait, charging into their dooms. Both of them began impaling them, but they were coming too fast, until Naruto decided to step it up a notch. He summoned some chakra to his throat, which he could tell Kyuubi was doing as well. Both of their cheeks puffed out and they turned their heads away from each other, spitting the balls of high-density chakra out in a blast of red and black intertwining chakra that obliterated a large portion of Konoha, including the Hokage monument. Naruto looked around through his blood-coated eyes and smiled. Luckily, there were a massive number of usable bodies behind him that were still intact to a degree. Kyuubi's eyes widened as she twitched several muscles in her lions, making Naruto orgasm straight away. He grunted several times, looking at her with interest. Think we've had enough fun here. Kyuubi nodded and pulled him out of herself slowly. Both of them got up, straightening their robes. Naruto tilted his head upwards and opened his mouth, revealing the hilt of the kusanagi. However, there was no jet black blade for it. Instead, once Naruto grabbed the handle, a blade of blood-red fire burst into existence. Naruto smiled at it and gave a few experimental slashes, making the flames roar and lengthen until the end of the swing's arc, when they returned to normal. I like it. Kyuubi smiled sweetly at her breeding partner having fun with his new toy. Kyuubi looked over to see Gamabunta disappear when Manda bit down on him. The summon battle is over. Let's go have some more fun. Naruto nodded in agreement. Sure. Both of them walked casually down the street, towards the site where one of the other battles was taking place. With Sasuke and Manda. Since it was just Manda and Gamabunta fighting, also taking into account the fact that Gamabunta was required to watch out for bystanders, while Manda had no such restrictions, the summon battle was quickly ended in Manda's favor. From what they could tell, Arashi's soul was regain its strength rapidly now that it was no longer being drained by the seal, giving Han a harder time dealing with his predecessor. Sasuke and Jiraiya were now engaging in a taijutsu match, when they saw Naruto and Kyuubi come around the corner, covered from head to toe in blood that wasn't theirs. Kyuubi also held a lot more form now, making Jiraiya wonder what had happened to her. Sasuke went to Naruto's side as he resealed his heaven seal, squatting down as the after effects began to take hold of his system. Naruto placed a hand on Sasuke's shoulder. Nice. Looks kind of like how we just left the northern section without the fires everywhere. Sasuke smirked and then gasped at the pain that racked through his body. Naruto tightened his hold on Sasuke's shoulder, unable to heal him but letting him know he was there for him. Sasuke nodded in appreciation before Naruto returned to look at Jiraiya. I'm not willing to take the chance that you know Shiki Fujin, so I'm just going to kill you. Jiraiya's eyes widened as Naruto calmly talked about killing him. Right now, all that Konoha had left to defend them was himself and Han, but things were not looking good. Naruto, I was told you were dead. If I had known you were still alive, I would have made sure none of this had happened. Naruto laughed while Kyuubi snickered. What makes you think I wanted this to turn out differently? How many former humans do you know that get the chance to rise through the ranks of hell to third in charge? Jiraiya raised an eyebrow. Third. Kyuubi nodded as she explained the upper rankings of hell. Being the Kyuubi means being third in charge of hell, Lord of Demons. Directly above that is the King of Hell, who those fools in the organization known as Akatsuki are trying to summon. Above that and being in the top position is Shinigami. Neither of those three have much to do with each other, so they're pretty much left to their own devices. Kyuubi took this opportunity in the minute lull in Jiraiya's actions to grab Kakashi with her tails and began to drain his remaining life into her, leaving nothing but a pile of clothing. Jiraiya stared in horror as more of Kyuubi became living flesh and not just spirit. Jiraiya put his head in his hands, disbelief and sorrow evident on his face when he brought his face back up. Naruto, you could have had so much more. Naruto fell to the ground laughing, rolling around and slamming his fist on the ground. Kyuubi laughed as well, and even Sasuke in his state managed a snort. Naruto finally recovered enough to speak. You're getting senile in your old age. What more could I possibly have gotten by staying in this village? At best, I could have gotten the position of Hokage and any woman from Konoha I wanted. Compared to what I have now and what I will gain in the near future, it's not even remotely considerable. No human woman could give me the amount of pleasure I get from mating with Q-chan. No position on this planet could give me the power, the numbers of minions and fame being king of demons could. In short, I have never made a single mistake I regret. No, I made one. That was not realizing earlier that this was destined to happen earlier. It is also destined you will die. Naruto groaned. There was only one man who would say such a corny thing. I can't and I won't die. Sure, I'm not as strong as she is yet, but that will come with time. As for you, Neji, would you like to try for round 2? In reply, Neji and several other Hyugas charged in, while Naruto and Kyuubi paid absolutely no attention to them. Neji aimed a strike at the Kyuubi's stomach, attempting to destroy her unborn young, but was repelled by a wall of red chakra. The Hyuga continued to attack, only to be repelled. After the last attack, both Kyuubi and Naruto turned around to see them on the floor, some of them beginning to recover from the demonic chitin used against them. Kyuubi immediately grabbed several of the stronger ones closer to her with her tails and pulled them up, absorbing them. The Hyugas looked on in horror as their clansmen were assimilated by the Kyuubi, letting nothing but their clothing fall to the ground. Both of them saw a large group of Junin-level ninja and above approaching. They were led by the three main Hyuga, Hiashi, Hinata and Hanabi. Behind them were many of their old friends. Kyuubi smirked as they practically lined up to die. Naruto felt Jiraiya's chakra source increase behind him, and whipped two of his tails out to pull his hands apart, stopping him doing whatever jutsu he was about to do. Your turn will come. Be patient. Jiraiya struggled in vain against Naruto's tails. He was amazed at how much strength they had in him to be able to stop him from moving at all. Hiashi glared at Naruto. I will not forgive you for what you did to my clan, or what you accused us of during the Chunin exams years ago. Naruto looked at Hiashi deadpanned, and then at Kyuubi. Q-chan, why do humans think I care about whether or not they will forgive me for what I do? Kyuubi shrugged, looking back at him. Even being sealed inside you for 17 years, I still don't understand. Humans are stupid, plain and simple. She got a mock glare from Sasuke who had recovered enough to stand. Kyuubi smiled at him. You stopped being a human the second you died. I don't classify you as one of these things over there. She indicated the group of Konoha shinobi with a sweep of her hand. And more one of us, a demon. Sasuke sighed and looked over the crowd, spotting a face he'd rather not see. Oh god, not another damn fangirl, and they wondered why I left Konoha. Ino fumed at the insult directed at her. Who do you think you are? You're not the Sasuke I knew. Kyuubi slapped her head with a paw. By God, how much stupider are they going to get? Isn't the idea to become smarter with age, not the opposite? Naruto and Sasuke agreed when they felt a massive blast of Han's chakra from nearby, turning to see a rather large cloud of smoke raising from an area several streets away. Jiraiya used this momentary distraction to free himself and begin forming hand seals that led to a jutsu Naruto would never let complete. He shot his tails out and pierced both of Jiraiya's arms before he could complete the last hand seal for the Shiki Fujin, making his arms drop to his sides, completely useless. Naruto growled at Jiraiya. Were you planning on making the same mistake your student did? We can all see just how that turned out. Jiraiya glared at Naruto. There was nothing he could do now. No jutsus and no taijutsu. Jiraiya grunted in pain as he fell to his knees, only to be dragged up into the air by one of Kyuubi's tails lifting him off the ground. She smiled sweetly at him. Don't worry, part of you will live on in my new body for all eternity. Jiraiya gasped as his body began disintegrating. He looked at Naruto as his legs finished disappearing. Naruto, I'm sorry. Naruto scoffed at the last words spoken before Jiraiya's body disappeared. Kyuubi sighed contentedly as Naruto saw the last parts of her body become real. Naruto smiled. Welcome back to the world of the living. Kyuubi flexed her joints before closing her eyes. Her body disappeared, only to be replaced with her true demonic form. Her 9 tails swung around, flattening houses, and she lifted her head to the air and howled in victory. She looked back down at the group of ninjas in front of her, many of who had soiled the clothes. Naruto walked up to her lowered head and gently stroked her fur, making Kyuubi lean her head to Naruto and close her eyes in pleasure from the scratch. Sasuke could see the reactions of the people and sighed. You really are idiots, this whole time, you really didn't believe that she was the Kyuubi. Sasuke walked up to the other side of Kyuubi from Naruto when they heard Han scream and his chakra signature fade rapidly, while the Yondaimons took form and strengthened. He reappeared beside them in the flesh and glaring at the villagers. I guess I should be apologizing for killing him, but a promise is a promise. Naruto felt a gust of wind blow by and saw the Hokage's hat fly by. He had an idea, grabbing it and placing it on his head, speaking with mock seriousness. I now proclaim myself the Rokudaime Hokage. The ninja froze and then those who could let their killer intent flare. Naruto took the hat off and burnt it to ashes, laughing the whole time. As if I'd want to be the Rokudaime Hokage. Being Hokage is a piece of crap. Only an idiot becomes one. Kyuubi smiled as Yondaime took off his own cloak and threw it into the wind. He looked at the villagers' surprised reactions and shook his head. I realized long ago that this wasn't the village I loved enough to die for, a village I asked to treat my son as a hero yet they went out of their way to kill him. It was when I made that realization that I renounced my position as the Yondaime Hokage. Kyuubi looked over their handiwork, seeing that the majority of Konoha was now completely in ruins as well as most of its inhabitants were now dead and being processed in hell. She looked to the remaining villagers and snorted. I would love to kill the rest of you humans, however, I am allowed to take a certain number of lives only as dictated. I have reached that limit. After all, I need enough left alive to come and claim some other time. Kyuubi looked at Naruto, who looked at her. Shall we go? Kyuubi nodded, but turned to Yondaime. They will not accept a human taking such a position in hell, no matter what we say. Yondaime nodded slowly before turning to Naruto. I guess this is it. Naruto shrugged and looked away, not trusting his emotions. Yeah, I might come back here before you keel over. Yondaime nodded and moved closer to Naruto, who held up his hand. You haven't earned the right to hug me. I still haven't forgiven you. Yondaime nodded and backed away. I see, well, good luck. Naruto nodded and closed his eyes, as did Kyuubi. The ground underneath them began cracking before splitting open. People covered their ears as they heard blood-chilling screams and wails coming from the hole. Naruto spoke without opening his eyes. Please tell me I don't have to listen to that for the next 10,000 years. I love the sound, but not for that long. Kyuubi's lips curved upwards, revealing razor-sharp fangs. Only when going to and from hell. Naruto nodded as hands shot out and grabbed them, pulling them into the crack in the ground which sealed back over them. Everyone left on the surface tried to regain their bearings. They looked to find that the only trace of the Yondaime was his cloak and Konoha Hitai 8. They could do nothing now but try and slowly rebuild after mourning for the loss of those close to them that had been killed. In the demon's throne room. As usual, the upper demons were arguing about who should take the kitsune's place as the clan in charge when the heavy iron doors flew open, revealing what looked disturbingly like a human child with 9 tails who walked past them up the crimson carpet, straight up to the throne and turned to face them. Are you talking about who is going to take my place? To emphasize his point, Naruto sat on the throne, making the demons glare at him. A 4-tailed demon spoke. Who do you think you are, human, to walk in here and take the throne? The answer came from behind them, in the doorway. My breeding partner and the new king of demons, that is who. Everyone turned to see the QB of old walk in past them and take the throne to Naruto's left. The demons smirked, obviously having an idea. One of them spoke up, a 1-tailed cat. But you failed in your mission, meaning you no longer have the right to remain as head of the kitsune. QB looked at the female cat in mild amusement. The time limit for my original mission was 10 human days, correct? Every demon nodded as QB continued. Also taking into account the time I am allotted to find a breeding partner, meaning 10 human years. Again they nodded. The head of a clan was allowed to take up to 10 human years off to find a suitable breeding partner without notice. That still only covers 10 years and 10 days. QB nodded. Naruto wanted to butt in, but knew that this was not his argument. Coupled with the fact that we are required every 9 human years to commit a small culling, and was it not the kitsune's turn today to commit the culling? The demons were stumped. QB had all bases covered. They could do nothing but acknowledge the fact that QB had not broken any demonic laws herself, and so was able to maintain her role as Queen of Demons, except for one small fact. You still require an advisor. An advisor was not just that. He was also the third voice in opinions made. Apart from their positions, the position of advisor was next in rank. Only the king and queen of demons were permitted to have one. Naruto looked past them and smiled toothily. We have one. Sasuke. They turned around and saw one who was most definitely a human. The room went into uproar. Until Naruto laughed, causing everyone to look at him expectantly. I guess you could call Sasuke a human, that is, until you see his real self. Naruto nodded to Sasuke, who activated his full level 2 cursed seal, making the demons regard him warily. Sasuke returned to normal and walked straight up, in between Naruto and QB where a smaller throne was. Naruto smiled as the demons said nothing. Good, it's settled then. I now proclaim myself King of Demons, third in command of Hell. Are there any objections? There were no spoken objections, so Naruto smiled and sat back. Mission accomplished. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.